Cyber Dopamine here. We're going to run a battery test, speaker test, performance test, and so much more with the new ROG Ally X. And we're going to compare it to the last gen Ally Legion Go Steamdeck Oled. And by the end of this video, you'll have a very good idea in your head as for what you should pull the trigger on or place your vote to. I kid you not, I've probably put 40 hours of my life into making this exact video. There's a lot to jump into. And so we're going to go ahead and start off with the ASMR button test. Next up is the speaker audio test. The way I'm going to do this is I'll put the mic on the back, and we're not going to listen for surround sound or anything like that. What we're going to focus on is the frequency spectrum, highs, mids, and lows. It was obvious that the Legion Go stood out, and I've talked about this a lot. The Legion Go speakers kind of sound like a Tamagotchi. Some people in the comments say they like their speakers. Maybe I just got the bad one in the draw, right? As far as a full sound goes on the spectrum, I found that the Steamdeck and the ROG Ally do pretty well. The ROG Ally and the Ally X, they're louder than the Steamdeck, but the Steamdeck has a full spectrum of sound in comparison. The lows hit pretty well to where you understand it's not too muddy. The mids and the highs aren't too crisp and they're not too sharp, and they're very clear, right? You can decipher. The Ally X and the Ally, I do favor those speakers simply because they are so loud. Most of the time, they're never at full volume. And it's just enough to where the higher frequencies don't pierce your ears. With the Legion Go, when you max it out, it doesn't get that loud. But somehow the high frequencies still pierce my ears, and it's painful and it's annoying. Just being honest. Now let's take a listen with the fan noise. We'll start off with the Steamdeck. So with the cooling, it's safe to say that the Legion Go might be the worst at it. I've actually had my device overheat a lot of times. It'll start to stutter, then shut down completely. I usually do whatever I can to keep it from maxing out like that, and the threshold isn't too high. And in regards to the sound, it's very loud, okay? I'll tell you, I've had my girlfriend say, that thing is chugging along, you know, in the room across, right? The Steamdeck Oled is amazing. It's far better than the Steamdeck LCD. When I'm playing a game on the Steamdeck Oled, I never get that high on the fans. And it's always managed a way to stay cool and not hot in the hands. The ROG Ally, the original version, right? That thing can get very, very hot. I do like the sound that comes from the fans on those. It's not too obnoxious. It's got like a cool Corvette-ish sound to it, but it gets freaking hot. The Ally X has actually blown my mind. I'm not one to be obsessed with cooling, but I will say good cooling goes a long way. At 30 watts turbo mode, I can play for hours and the device is just crisp as ice. And it's really cool. It's very interesting. I'll take it apart and show you later in this video. Let's take a look at the screens real quick. As you can see here, these are the minimum brightness. 3 screens, the Allies both have the same display. Now look at the difference between the OLED at the bottom and the other IPS displays. Mind-blowing. It's so crazy. And if you look at the resolutions, I'm going to zoom into the resolutions here. You'll see real quick. The Legion Go has a staggering 2560 by 1600p. Now, as great as the resolution is, there's a problem. You can't go that high. The device is not powerful enough to render that resolution. So you drop it back down to 800p, which is equivalent to the Steamdeck OLED. Here's the ROG Ally at 1080p. And then the Ally X at 1080p with a higher saturation. That's a personal preference, you do you. And then the Steamdeck OLED at 800p. But again, that OLED screen is so good with the darks. It's really hard to go back to an IPS display. So now let's talk about ports. This is the Ally X. You've got 2 ports, USB-Cs, one 3.2. On the bottom, you've got nothing, right? I will say that having 2 USB-C ports is a big deal. On this ROG Ally, there's only one. Then you've got your XG mobile slot, which is an exclusive eGPU. I've come across, either you got your headphone jack and my broken micro SD card, it actually overheated. This is the Legion Go. You've got a USB-C on the top. And then the cool part is you've got a USB-C on the bottom. And I've actually ended up using both of these a lot. And it's actually pretty convenient having them both on opposite sides. Not that big of a deal. Here's a Steam Deck, just with one. I'm never really doing crazy stuff with the Steam Deck. I just play it how it's meant to be played. So I haven't had a need for 2 USB slots. Now, as far as durability goes, the Steam Deck OLED is probably the least durable out of all of them. I've dropped my previous OLED, and I've broken the bumper, and I dropped it from my bed. Okay, so not too high. If I shake it, you can hear little loose things in there. I've never taken it apart. But yeah, the threshold just based off experience is pretty low on damaging it. So last place. The Legion Go is a very durable device. I've had no problems with it. However, you know, I mean, the base of this thing is so sturdy, but the problem is that we have these controllers and you can take them apart, and you kind of have to be a bit more careful. You can't just throw it in your bag like I do. You can see a little bit of wobble. I'm actually forcing it. I'm not really being too friendly. So they've actually done a good job of making sure it stays tight, because it's been almost a year and I've been pretty rough with it. Nothing yet, but I could see it still being a problem down the road. This is the ROG Ally, and by far has this thing been durable. Just to put it into perspective for you guys, my friend dropped one off our apartment in New York, and it hit the ground. We went down to the bottom and it was still intact. Obviously it was broken, but it was still intact. Okay, that's a very crazy thing to say. This is the ROG Ally X. Same build quality as the ROG Ally, except it's heavier. And that's not really a good thing, right? The cool part is this is a black device, which means that you can get away with the dirtiness of your hands. With the ROG Ally, I've had to clean it a few times. What's cool is, in regards to repairability, we'll go ahead and take this thing apart. I want to show you something that Asus just let me know about. And by the way, this is not sponsored. I'm not getting paid for this crap. I'm just genuinely being real here. As I take this apart, everything that you are seeing right now, the back plate, the bumpers, the joysticks, and if we go ahead and take this off, the battery, the fans, they're replaceable. Asus is going to start selling the battery. They're going to start selling the fans. Based off what I've been told, the battery's going to be around 40 bucks. Take that with a grain of salt because I don't know yet. I haven't seen it on the website. But you can replace things on this device. And that's super important. That's very cool with the peace of mind factor. Because again, these are handhelds. You know, they're gonna get pushed around a bit. And you want to make sure, you want that peace of mind that you know you can fix something if it goes down, right? But anyways, take a look at these fans. Back to what I was saying before. The cooling is just so good. And it's very quiet. And it's very efficient. So here we're going to go ahead and try some gameplay. We're going to look at the frame rates. And there's a lot of ways I could have done this. But I decided to go with the most practical way, which is performance presets on each handheld. So how it works is the ROG Allies have silent, performance, and turbo mode. So 10 to 13 watts, 15 to 17 watts, and then 25 to 30 watts. The Legion Go is performance and battery saver mode. There's no in between. There's a TDP slider, but it doesn't work. And then with the Steamdeck Oled, it only caps out at 15 watts, but it's an amazing hustler with low TDP, and you'll see what I mean. So here's Elden Ring, medium settings, all at the lowest native resolutions for each handheld. And with the Legion Go, we're at 16 frames per second on power saving mode. With the Steamdeck Oled, we're at 31 frames per second on power saving mode. With the Ally, we're at 23 frames per second. With the Ally X, we're at 32 frames per second. So the Ally X has a 10 frames per second difference than the current Ally. If we go ahead and switch things over to performance mode, we're going to have 37 frames per second on the Steamdeck Oled, 50 frames per second on the Ally, and 54 frames per second on the Ally X. And then if we go ahead and bump everything up to turbo, max it all out, 51 frames per second on the Legion Go, 39 frames per second on the Steamdeck Oled, 53 frames per second on the Ally, and 56 frames per second on the Ally X. Okay, let's take a look at No Man's Sky. We're going to go to power saving mode. The Legion Go is at 19 frames a second. The Steamdeck Oled is at 53 frames per second on 10 watts. That is crazy. Okay, the Steamdeck Oled is so good with low power. And then we've got the Ally at 23 frames per second. And then the Ally X at 40 frames per second. That's a pretty big difference between the Ally. Again, it's game for game, and I'm not going to go too crazy with these benchmarks because, again, updates are going to kick in, right? If we bump everything up to performance mode, at the Steamdeck Oled is at 60 frames a second at 15 watts. That's crazy. And then at 15 watts on the ROG Ally, it's 51 frames per second. And then performance mode on the Ally X is 62 frames per second. And then if we turbo everything, the Legion goes at 59 frames per second. The Ally is at 61 frames per second. And the Ally X is at 66 frames per second. Now for the big one, right? This is the battery test. And by golly gee, was this difficult to get down. Let's just get to it. The way it's set up is we're running Hitman at the lowest native resolutions for each handheld. Performance mode, so 15 to 17 watts. Airplane mode, max brightness, everything's matched up. And let's just let them rip. Listen, I won't ask you guys to subscribe. If it's your thing, it's your thing. You do you. But tell me what I can do to make these videos better. I'm still learning as I go. And I know I've skipped out on a lot of things, but I'm just trying to do my best. I want to give you guys what a lot of you are curious about. But thank you guys for taking the time to watch this. Okay, so we're at 1 hour and 22 minutes, and the Ally has died. The Legion Go is at 7%. The Steam Deck is at 37%, and the Ally X is at 52%. That is crazy. You can literally say it's double the battery life, if not more. Okay, and at 1 hour and 26 minutes, the Legion Go has died. And at 2 hours and 5 minutes, the Steamdeck Oled has died. The Ally X still has a 26% remaining. And here we have it. 2 hours and 42 minutes, performance mode. The Ally X has finally died. Amazing stuff. Yo, thank you guys for taking the time to watch this video. I've probably spent like 40 hours on it, not freaking exaggerating. If you got this far, thanks, y'all. Let me know what I can do to improve. If you want, subscribe. You don't have to. No pressure. But yeah, let me know what else you guys would like next. But peace out.